Hello, everyone, and welcome to the About Healing podcast. This is a show created for those on or awakening into their spiritual journeys who are ready, wanting, and learning how to heal themselves. I'm your host, Sheree Buckman, medium and spiritual healer. Join me as I share my unfiltered perspective in healing, creating a place of love and understanding for all, reminding us that we are in this life together and never alone in our struggles. To learn more about me and my purposeful work, visit my website at shereebuckman.com. Let's begin. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of About Healing podcast. Here we are entering in one of my favorite times of year, which I know a lot of people love. We are now kicking off into the holidays now that Thanksgiving is over with. But with that being said, I really wanted to do this special episode in talking about holiday stress. And so I'm going to apologize to those out there who probably are feeling right now, I really could have used you last week. Why wasn't this done beforehand? Well, I'm sorry. I had to put gratitude out there first because that's what the month was about. But I'm here now. And maybe this will bring a good comparison of the lessons of things that you've been going through with the holidays. And I really want to help in changing perspective or giving guidance because this is a big deal for some people. While this season is full of magic and joy and giving, all the other amazing twinkle lights and sounds and smells and fun things, it is also a time of year that stress is at an all-time high. And so I just, again, wanted to take a minute and help some of you through that. If you're really feeling, you could use some of that guidance. So this time of year, the stress is usually surrounding the struggles of mounting anxieties of the parties and all the activities happening, finding the perfect gift. Family and people are usually big high stressors, decorating, baking, cooking, making sure and trying to create these beautiful memories for your loved ones, money, having enough time, so on and so forth. But first of all, as we get into this and as we are entering this time, I want you to take a minute and take a deep breath. Because sometimes we need to take that moment and we need to take everything apart and look at it from the outside looking in and see where we are creating the stress and how we can change it, adjust it, or just remove the stressors. So to get into the lessons for this episode, I have broken down these stresses into the three main categories. This is usually where it can all be broken down. The first one is the stress is created by expectations. It's the expectations you hold in creating the magic of the holiday or the expectations of people of what you've created and they still expect the same experience. Secondly is the people. The people, whether it is the Christmas parties and all the chaos and you're an introvert and you're around a lot of extroverts and that's really uncomfortable. Or it's being around the extended family where there's a lot of extra stress or arguments or triggers and old traumas. And then money. Money is a big stressor in this holiday. So we're going to go through it and we're going to break each of these down one by one. So first, I want to get into expectations because I feel like this is a really good starting place because we need to look at the standards we put for ourselves into creating this magical holiday. So we're going to start with a perfection check. This is what I'm calling it. Are you one who are keeping yourself so busy and have these high expectations of decorations and lights and gifts and all of these other pieces because you're trying to keep up with the Joneses? Number one, you have nothing to prove to anyone. And I know this is just turns into that where we get into these competitive modes, whether you're on a street with all the neighbors who really deck out their houses for the holidays, which is amazing and beautiful. But I also want to mention that just because they are and you like doing a little modest or something a little bit smaller doesn't mean that you have less Christmas joy or less to give out. Try to maintain and do it within your means and what makes you happy. How do you express the holiday in it? Because you are in your own unique experience. You don't have to match your neighbors or your friends or other family members or watching movies and keeping up with that. Create your own. The next, it's important within these expectations. So it's important while you are looking at the expectations you have set for yourself in creating this magical season of wanting to bring that joy and that holiday spirit alive for your loved ones and for yourself. We can get stuck getting really busy in creating these, whether you're sitting down and you're a DIYer and you're on Pinterest and you're creating all these new decorations and recipes, or the ideas of planning these perfect gifts or trying to create the perfect experiences for those around you. So I want to remind you to stay present. And what that means is, again, to take that deep breath when you find yourself going down the rabbit hole on Pinterest. Oh, I can raise my hand slowly. And that was definitely me at one point. I'm a Pinterest girl and I love all the ideas. And then my husband will start seeing me do that, especially when it comes down to the holidays. And then he looks at me because I'm like, look how cute. He's like, when do you have the time? And it's true. That is a reminder for me now to sit here and look at it, that do I want to sit there and create this one new piece when I am in a place that I'm so busy and trying to get all these other pieces together that I'm missing out on the actual joy part and spending time. So it's just a reminder that sometimes we need to look at it and stop putting so much energy in creating the magic or the perfection that you miss it entirely. In years past, this was definitely me. And I bring this up because this is coming from a true experience. I have wonderful memories of my childhood, especially around this time of year. And it's as if I have been trying to recreate it for my kids every year. But I keep looking back and I keep thinking about this like one Christmas or these different pieces of different holidays. And I'm trying to like pull all of those magical moments of all of these different times, and I'm trying to recreate it in this one time period. That's a lot of pressure. And I realized it was a pressure that I was putting on myself. I was setting these expectations for myself and trying to create this. And finally, one day, and I started understanding that I was looking at how tired I was getting, and that by trying to create so much magic, it was totally taken away from the magic because it was creating more of this tired stress. And of course, my children felt that. And I knew right then is that I had to step back and I had to start enjoying the small moments with those I love. Sometimes we forget about those little moments, the ones that weren't intended to be those special magical moments, but truly are. And before you know it, you've created a new tradition. And this actually reminds me of another personal example of being younger. And this had to do with like Thanksgiving. If I were now to ask my mom, I feel like if I were to ask her, did we have any Thanksgiving traditions? I don't think that she would come up with one other than saying, we would go to our family's house for dinner. But when I look back, I can remember one that I have brought with me into my family now that I do with my kids. And it was the Thanksgiving parade. Watching the Thanksgiving parade on TV, I'm a geek for that. And even my husband knows I am like a child still. I am waiting for it to start. So I'm in Michigan. And so he grew up and the Detroit parade is like the parade you have to watch. And so I tried watching it. I'm like, no, I have respect completely for that. But that's not what I grew up with. And like, I have to have Macy's parade. Like, I have to see the floats. I need to see the little shows and the Rockettes. And yes, like that's it. And so that was something I did being younger, is that as we were getting ready for the day, we would have the Thanksgiving Day parade on. And so it was a house full of girls. It was my mom and my sisters. And so we would all be taking turns getting in the shower. And so who's ever in the shower, we're watching the parade. And then we would go get ready. Like we would do our hair and then come out and see what's happening in the parade. It was this big process. And that it didn't sound like a lot then, but it created something because we did it. And I look forward to, and now it is turned into a tradition. I'm bringing this up now because sometimes we aren't aware of the really small things that were not intended to be a big deal, but because it was more relaxed. And it wasn't something that was like, look at this, it's going to be so exciting, enjoy. It wasn't like a forced big deal. That was a time that I loved because it was open and it was relaxed. And those were the funny times. And it was great. That's why I suggest this, is just take a minute to enjoy those little moments. The other one is, and I think this goes a long way for those, again, this is under the expectations. And I think those of us who have these high expectations for ourselves to create these perfect magical moments is we have to remember to take time for ourselves, taking that breath and doing the little things that you love. And I say that because I'm a mom. For you as a parent, we are creating these magical moments for our children. And they are, but we have to take a minute and make sure that we are doing and taking that time for ourselves too. Like for me, one of my favorite times during this season is the time when I'm by myself in the evening. My husband's working and my kids are asleep. This is when I put a fire in. I turn on what my husband calls the chick flick Christmas movies, the ones he has zero care to watch. And I'm sitting and I'm wrapping the gifts. This is my time. I get to watch all of my stuff, and I love it. Is it something huge and a big deal? No, but it's magical and it's relaxing, and it's how I enjoy that time. So just know that expectations are your own doing. They are a list of your creation. Even if others have expectations on you, you are the only one who can choose to adjust them. It's something that we want to talk about, boundaries, which is perfect because it's leading us into the next topic I want to talk about, which is the people. The other big stress of the holiday, the people. To begin this conversation about talking about the people, I know for some out there, and I know this, I hear many people talk about this, I hear friends that talk about this, the holidays, it is not a joyous time like on the specific holiday because they have to go to families that are more what we call dysfunctional, where it's high stress, there's so much judgment, there's arguing or substances or whatever it may be, and it's really hard. Or sometimes family don't have good boundaries, or maybe you don't have good boundaries. And that's what I want to talk about, is going to help you understand what healthy boundaries are, maybe to help with a little bit of the survival mode of getting through this with people in general. Because maybe it's not just family. Maybe we're talking about Christmas parties with coworkers and understanding how to draw that line of protecting yourself in a healthy way. So for some of you, you fully understand this. You know how to hold your boundaries. But if you were like me, especially very past me before understanding all this, you have a very hard time, and this is a very tough lesson, which is very interesting since Copper and I just had this conversation this morning.
We did.
And we had actually, and it's funny, I forgot that I put this into this episode, but we were just talking, I'm like, we need to do an episode about boundaries. Because, for Copper and I, we are big people pleasers. We do. We want to make everybody comfortable and we want to make everybody happy. And I have always, in history's past, doing that to a point where I would make myself extremely uncomfortable and putting everybody's needs ahead of mine, knowing that I can deal with this uncomfortable stress as long as everybody else was happy. But the thing about that is, and what I've learned so much now, while that has great intentions, our emotional state and our stress and how we feel, other people feel too. Remember, we are made of energy, and energy can be felt by others. And especially, like for me, it was important to understand this because it was my children who felt this. So if I'm in a stressed out state, even if I'm trying to make things magical for them, they know I'm not fully present and enjoying it too. And it makes it a different experience. So it is important that we understand these healthy boundaries. And I need you to know, for those of you that struggle in this, is that you are allowed to choose your emotional health and create joy for yourself. You're allowed to say no. You're allowed to draw the line to create a positive experience for yourself. but it's also learning to say no and having those boundaries in a very loving way. It is very different when you're invited, let's say you're invited to a party, and if you were to respond saying, no, I'm not going, that's all negative BS. I don't need that in my life. Well, first of all, someone probably was creating that, and they put a lot of effort and time into this, and now you're blowing their bubble up and making it a bad thing. And you're also projecting your stuff onto them, so you have to be very careful on how you are using your words. But if you were saying, first of all, and you also know that you do not have to give excuses. No one needs to know the reason. That's a big one, because I always thought every time I had to say no, I had to give a reason or I had to give an excuse, but you do not have to. No one needs to know that. That's up to you. If you don't want to, you don't want to. If you cannot, you cannot. I just want to make that clear, because that was a tough one for me to understand. Was I thought people would need a good reason for me to say no. So, to follow that up, you do not have to do everything that you're invited to, nor make the holiday magical for every single person in your life. And just so you know, at the end of this episode, I'm going to have this little tip and this little exercise for you to work on to understand maybe a little bit further on how you can go about this. So stick with me here. The other thing I want to talk about under the topic of people, I actually feel like this kind of goes in there, is talking about the traditions and then relationship change. It's important to remember in this topic or within this season that as we age, we grow and evolve. We know we are doing that as people, as souls, but we also need to understand that even with that, it changes some of the traditions and how we celebrate things. Because sometimes we have this idea of how it's always been. This is how we celebrate it. And it comes with the expectation. So either you have others that have these expectations, but this is always what we do. Do not change it. You can't change it. This is tradition. And then that creates shame and guilt, like if you weren't to come, and that's a hard thing. Remember, we can't change how other people think or how they view things. It is how we express the example. So it's to understand that it's okay for things to change. It is okay for things to adjust. It happens in life, and therefore even our traditions will too. What was once an amazing experience can grow past what it once was. A loss in a family. This is a big one, especially when you have a loss of your matriarch or a patriarch who was like the core, the center of a holiday. It brings really big change, and this can be stressful and emotional, and it's a big pivot. It's a change. But not only with that, you also have merge of families or a dissolution of families. So whether someone gets married and you're adding another person in, well, guess what? With each person comes another family of their traditions. And even with that gets a little crazy, and things have to adjust. For an example, for me, in my teenage and young adult years before I met my husband, again, love the holidays, but each actual holiday day were so busy. My parents are divorced and have been since I was very young. And I had, oh my goodness, the holidays were like 4 different places. Like, that's why I talked about, like, on Thanksgiving, getting ready and watching the parade. Like, we had to get up early and we were watching the parade. I was West Coast, so, it started early. And then we had to be at place 1, by a certain time. And we'd spend 2 hours there. And then I'd go to the other side of the family and spend 2 hours there. And then, sometimes we had our own, especially like if it was Christmas within my household, we would have a morning thing. And then my best friend's family was my family too. So I would always go there for a couple hours. It was a lot. And there are a lot of families out there I know that have that, where again, you have, a marriage and you have one side of the family and another side of a family. And then if you add like divorce and you have the separate families, it is a very long tier to go. Families change, and we don't get to have those traditions at your house like they always were at one time. But we have to look back and find and bring some of those beautiful traditions that we did and create something new and exciting for yourself. Whether you do Friendsgiving. When I lived in Texas, we did that. That was before kids.
We did.
Friends.
Some of my most favorite holidays was Friendsgiving.
Oh, yeah. The best times was Friendsgiving. I will never forget that. Those were fun and free, no expectations. It was just fun.
We just had a good time.
Right. And then, again, things grew and evolved from there, and more kids, more families, and that stopped happening. And then we moved. So we moved away. At least for us, it stopped happening.
You ruined it. Let's be honest. Yeah.
We hosted a lot for a while, but beyond the point. But now it's important to remember, no matter how you celebrate it, that the key to this in the holidays, especially if you're one where you're a new family or a new relationship and you have two people with very strong traditions and they're very different, it is about compromise. Compromise. It is about creating something new. You are a member of the family just like everyone else. So each person has just as much say in their holiday as the other. And we need to remember that. So you have a say in how you want to spend it and create it, but also so does the other person too. And so you got to have the conversation and find the balance. Okay. Now we're going into the big one. I know that this is also another big one. The stress, the stress, the stress, the money, the money, the money. It is so easy to get lost in the marketing of the holiday. Come on. It's happening in earlier and earlier these days. Come on, I was just at Hobby Lobby in October and they were playing Christmas music. The first Christmas commercials are starting in October now. And again, I love Christmas, but I also love my Halloween and that time of year. So for me, it's hard to distinguish. But my point is that marketing goes hard and strong when it comes to this holiday. You know, because we have like Black Friday, big spending holiday. I hope you're all okay after this just passed for you guys. Woo, breathe it in. Breathe, breathe, breathe. Cyber Monday. This just passed too. I hope you guys survived that also. Because it's easy to get sucked into this. It's the excitement. And guess what? Marketing does really well because we've talked about the lack. They can create this idea of lack. Oh, there's only a limited few. Oh, we're going to run out this year. This is the hot item. And just hearing, guess what? The hot item was probably never on your radar, but just hearing that it's the hot item and there's limited ones, it changes something in perception. You're like, oh, then I must need it. I must want it because everybody else wants it and there's only a limited few. I bring this up because sometimes we have to stop. Again, take that deep breath and really focus on what's important here. Because that fear of lack creates a craze of stress and that get mine attitude. It's why, like Black Friday, I know it's changed now. I mean, I haven't been out to Black Friday. It used to be, again, super early, get up super, super early the day after Thanksgiving and you get in line at like midnight or 4 a.m. or I don't know. I just know it was still dark out and we were going out. And there were big incidences, like where people are getting run over, literally run over. People were running on top of people to run into a store.
For what? For what?
Yeah, exactly.
For a TV.
For a material item that will break one day because you got to save that little bit of money in that one moment. Let's stop a minute and think about what the holidays mean to you. Because again, it's just, we get stuck in that hype. And it's easy. Have I been there? Heck yes. I'm not saying I'm immune to it. I've seen it. But sometimes when I have those feelings like I need to go and get there, you have to get out of the thought of lack. There is always enough. There's always enough. There's always more than enough. And if something runs out of something that you really wanted, just breathe. It doesn't mean that there's someone in your life or yourself or anybody else that is going to, this is the worst holiday ever. I didn't get this one brand of this one thing. Because that's what I mean is to focus on what the holiday's about. I know you guys listening. Hey, I know you're listening and I know this may not be the point for you, but I know somewhere out there, we just need that reminder from time to time. Let's get back to basics and remember. And then we have to look at perception. When it comes to money, we need to look at the perception. We have to let go of the lack, the feeling of not having enough or not giving enough. Because these, again, just like a couple episodes ago, we were talking about the ego. These are part of that human-based ego where we get in there and we have these feelings like there's not enough. You always, always, always have enough to shower those you love because it's not always about the money. Not when it comes to the holidays and expressing your love for others. Money is not the only way to give and show others how important they are for you. Sometimes it's about giving your time. I know sometimes when I get really busy and I'm doing things and in my mind, of course, I'm like, I got to finish this. I got task 1, 2, and 3. I'm like an A-B. I'm a list girl. I got to get down my list and I got to get this done. But then my kids will always remind me, hey, Mom, will you sit down and color with me? will you do this? And even though I want to get my tasks done, that is always that gentle reminder that they're not going to ask me this for much longer. And if this is something that comes up in my sessions, and I'm going to put this right here. It has come up where I've told clients this, and I tell myself this. Sometimes when you're in the middle of being busy and you're creating these beautiful memories, whether it's work or creating money or I don't care, fill in the blank. Put yourself on your deathbed. It is the end of your life. Look back at what you're doing right at that moment. Is that important? Is that what you're going to reflect on? Or is it going to be those small moments like looking back saying, oh, I should have taken 10 minutes and colored a sheet with my child? Or should I have finished cleaning something just because it was on my list so I can mark it off because I have a weird OCD of liking to mark off things off a list. Weird true fact. But it's also about creativity. My favorite gifts to receive, my ultimate favorite gifts to receive are the handmade ones. I never have a Christmas. Like my husband and I, we don't really do like Christmas gifts for each other. It's been about the kids and it's fine. I love my kids' handmade gifts. I love it when friends make them because they put energy into it and they thought about me to make it. I don't care if it's a paper card that they scribbled on or a painted handprint, that copper makes me sometimes. I would love it, but those simple creations, oh my goodness, it's amazing. And maybe that could be something if you're stressed out and you don't know what to get each other. Maybe it's coming down to that point like, hey, let's do something different. This year we're getting creative. It's whatever you can make. I think that's awesome. You know what? I'm adding it to my list this year. It's totally going in and I'm telling everybody to do that. But the simple traditions, think of the simple little traditions. It doesn't have to be big. Even if you were used to doing it before because you love to take the Polar Express train rides. I know they have that here in Michigan. I know they're really expensive. But times are changing and things are getting more expensive. And sometimes we just can't afford to do it anymore. And yeah, there might be some, especially if little ones that are used to doing that might be disappointed. But create something new and different. I guarantee you will make it even more special because you're doing it together. And again, when we're going into money and we're going into the stress of it, last but not least, ask for help. This is the season. Those who are able want to help. Do not let shame, guilt, or any other negative, self-defeating emotion get in the way. If you're in a place and you are struggling to have that holiday dinner, ask. That is okay. Because you know what? We all need it sometimes. Yeah, I know that sometimes it's hard to ask because we've seen so many take advantage of it. But those who know and love you or within the community know if you really genuinely need help, you're gonna get it. You will get it. Because we are a community and no one should ever be alone in their struggles. We are all connected and guess what? We've all been there or will be there. So it is a big chain and we should be supporting each other. And this is a season about that. So let's also check in with our loved ones, with friends, with family, with our community and see who, again, might need a little bit of help. Some may not be willing to ask, but when we help someone, it also shouldn't be about us. Sometimes it is putting a gift at their doorstep without a card, without posting on Facebook about all the great things you've done.
That's a big one for me.
Leave it anonymous. By doing that, you made it about you. Because some people, it's hard to ask for help and hard to receive because they don't want the world to know. Some people who are willing to give,
yes,
they like to announce it. So please watch that because it takes that anonymity. Yeah. I feel like Finding Nemo trying to say anemone. See, anonymity. There, I think I said it right. So that's, again, another way. Just think of them and let's respect their situation.
The look at me mentality always bothers me. And Facebook's really bad about that because this is off topic. I'll take it out. But if you gotta post your good deeds, you're not doing them for the right reason, because it's invasive to the person that you help too. It's like they don't, maybe they don't want the world to know that they needed your assistance. Respect their privacy. Respect their pride. Yeah.
Either way, it's just flashy. Pride. There it is. So as we wrap up this episode, I'm going to give you a little bit of a healing tip or a little bit of guidance to help you through this if you are having challenges in holiday stress, where your stresses are and how you can adjust them. Because first and foremost, I want to tell you is to go back and find the meaning of the holiday for you. What is the meaning? Sometimes we have to go back and remember. And then create that. And yes, it is okay for your meaning to be different than somebody else's. It's okay that your traditions are different than somebody else's. Let's not keep up with the Joneses. It's creating your own and making it beautiful and unique. And keep it unique. That's amazing. The other is take a minute and think about, or I highly suggest a journal and writing this down. Journal. What brings you the most stress? I want you to sit there in it, and I want you to sit there and I want you to write down, just put that thought in your head. What is it that brings me stress this time of year? Start writing it down. You can bullet write it. You can write a whole book, paragraphs. It doesn't matter. It's getting those thoughts out of your head and onto the paper to where you can see it. And then I want you to create another list, a separate list. And I want this one to be of all the things that bring you joy during this season, the things that you're trying to create, the wonderful things. I want you to make that list. I want to make sure that you're doing the stressful ones first, followed by the light and beautiful things, okay? Then I want you to take the first list, and I want you to begin to cut or alter those that will align you more in the joy. What can you cut off that list, or the stress list? What can we take out that you don't even have to touch, that you don't, that are high stresses but low payouts? Then by creating a calmer, more enjoyable experience for yourself, remember, this should be about you too. The more calm you are and the less stress you are in creating the magic of the season, this will then create the same energy for those you are directly connected to. You are a beacon. We are all beacons of energy. And if you're stressed, you're going to give a stressful energy. And this in itself, by creating a more calm, more joyful experience, this is a gift. It truly is a gift. An amazing gift, especially when you're one that's in a high stress and we're easy to get to easy triggers of anger or exhaustion. Let's remove the stress for everyone and create a beautiful season. I hope this episode helps a few of you out there who might be consumed in the stress of the holidays. Just take a minute, and most of all and always and foremost, take that deep breath and try to see a different perspective of what's happening so you can remove the stress. I hope you all have a wonderful season, whether you actually celebrate this holiday or not. It is a season that brings, again, so much love energy out there. Let's sit in that and absorb that and keep giving that love energy out, because this is a high vibrating time of year. And let's keep it high vibrating by removing the stress. Until next week, everybody. Next week, we go weekly. Until next week and another fun little holiday series. Hopefully it shouldn't be too heavy. We will see. Enjoy yourselves and take care of yourself. Until next time. With so much love and gratitude, I want to thank you for listening to this week's episode. My hope today is that the message continues to guide you along your path to healing. You can find About Healing Podcast on Pandora, Spotify, Apple, Google Podcast, or any of your favorite places to listen in. Follow and share the podcast on Facebook and Instagram, where you can find healing guidance, quotes, tips, insights, and chances to win free stuff. To ask questions or share comments, email me at abouthealingpodcast@gmail.com, or feel free to always reach me on Facebook and Instagram. Until next time, be kind to yourself.